What's up, guys? It's Jeffrey, and it's been a while, but making this video because I suddenly have a lot more free time on my table now. New job starts at 5 in the morning, but I mean 6 in the morning because it's East Coast time, it's remote, and ends at 2. So in the afternoon, it feels like my day's longer now, and suddenly I have time to make videos. Anyways, today we're just want to talk about this book, Think Like a Rocket Scientist, by I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but I hope I don't butcher it. But Ozan Varol, whatever. Um, well, I mean, a couple of things before we get into the actual content. I've read a lot of nonfiction books like this. Self-help, self-development, or like business, and a lot of the time what tends to happen with this type of book is that they have a central argument, but then they're just repeating the same thing over and over again throughout the entire book. A pretty good example of that is the book 80-20 Rule. Forgot who the author is, read it a while ago, but that one is interesting because the central argument of the book is basically 20% of your product yields 80% of the profit, right? And that can be sort of applied to a lot of things, like the example that I just gave, or in college, 20% of the time that I spent studying maybe contributed to 80% of my test score, right? And that book sort of it has that central argument, which is a very interesting one, and then it provided obviously a lot of supporting evidence, and it provided a lot of ways that it's applied to different industries, different scenarios, not just business, right? In all aspects of life. And it's a good book, don't get me wrong. Like, it's definitely a helpful book. But it's just like, the ironic thing about that book is that its central argument could be applied to the book, where 20% of the book sort of talked about 80%, or is 80% of the value. But that's not the case with this one. This book, How Do You Think Like a Rocket, or Think Like a Rocket Scientist, from the title, you might think, oh, it's for fucking engineers. Sorry for swearing. Family friendly channel. I don't want to do a retake, but it's for you'd think it's for engineers, but in fact it's not. It sort of talks about how the way that rocket scientists think can be applied to, can be helpful to a lot of, just in aspects of all aspects, or not all, but like a lot of aspects of life. And what I like about it is that, the central argument is, if we could all think a little bit, the way that rocket scientists think is fascinating. It's useful to a lot of other people, but if you're not a rocket scientist, you don't know how. But rocket scientists, they do very hard things, and they a lot of time are successful. That's the central argument. But each chapter of the book sort of provides unique ways or unique insights that I feel like throughout the entire book, I'm constantly learning new things. It's not just repeating the same thing over and over again. It's talking about different ways that rocket scientists think, like how to deal with failure, how to deal with success, how to tackle hard things, etc., etc. So throughout the entire book, there's a lot of takeaways, and didn't write down all of them, but just off the top of my head, there's a lot of information. And but my biggest, I'd say, takeaways, first of all, obviously, it's the first principle thinking that it talked about. Basically, just because something is done traditionally a certain way doesn't necessarily mean it's the most efficient way to do it, right? Traditionally, it talked about how rocket scientists, or not rocket scientists, but rocket companies, if you want to build a rocket, you have to buy all these different parts from different manufacturers to assemble them, and each part costs so much money. But then if you go back to principle thinking, you can sort of figure out, if you just manufacture those parts yourself, you can save a lot of money. And that, that sort of mindset could be applied to a lot of different things. Like just because something is done traditionally a certain way doesn't mean you cannot disrupt that how things are done. You cannot like just go back to the foundation of why, asking yourself, why are we doing things a certain way instead of just taking something for granted. So I think that was a very powerful idea for me. And just because traditionally this is the career path, or this is how you get into an industry or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean it's for you. Or doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Just because you don't fit into the mold or what you're thinking is sort of outside the box doesn't mean it's wrong. A lot of the time it's probably better, right? Just because you don't know something how it's done, you're questioning things, it's probably a good thing. Anyways, and another one of my big takeaways, and this one I really liked because it's something that I personally have been thinking and talking about a lot. And this book just did such a fantastic job of, basically articulating it. And the idea is that you have to question your own beliefs. It sounds like a simple thing on paper. Is question your own beliefs. Okay, and people don't realize the importance in that because from the book, it talked about from the aspect of a scientist, or the perspective of a scientist, where as a scientist, when you come up with a theory about certain things, whether it's in mathematics or quantum mechanics or theoretical physics, astrophysics, whatever, when you come up with a theory, oftentimes the next thing to do is to disprove it, to prove your own theory wrong. Because in the process of proving your own theory wrong, you're going to learn new things, and you're going to solidify your own theory if you cannot find ways to prove it wrong. And you encourage those around you to do it with you. Hey, I have this theory, let's all prove it wrong. If we can't, okay, maybe we accept it. Maybe we keep proving it wrong. Don't know. But that's the mindset of a scientist. Science, if you can logically prove something wrong, then it's not like politics, right? Where there's a lot of, there's no right or wrong. It's not black or white. Science is black a lot of the times, without getting too political, a lot of the time is black and white. And that's the mindset of a scientist. I have this theory. Let's see if we can prove it wrong. And that ties into this whole idea of questioning your own belief. And I think just also, I'm thinking in terms of politics, like we have a two-party system, but the only way for one party to win anything or to gain power is to prove the other party wrong. Is to stand against everything the other party stand for. But when in fact, have we questioned our own political beliefs? Have we tried to prove our own opinions wrong? Because that's actually where progress actually is made. Is when you're trying to prove yourself wrong. In the process of proving yourself wrong, you're going to learn new things, and you're going to come up with new things, and you're going to evolve. But we're never proving ourselves wrong. We're always focusing on proving other people wrong. And hence, progress are never made. We don't live in an ideal world, and this is probably never going to happen, at least in the United States. But, in an ideal world, if, people on both spectrum or party of the political spectrum could spend more time reflecting upon themselves, their own beliefs, instead of actively trying to prove the other party wrong, it would be a better country. But obviously that's not going to happen. And the funny thing in politics, I think the book talked about it too, is that you have to stick with your idea. You cannot change. If you change, you're going to come off as fickle, But in reality, change is a good thing. How can you hold an idea for a long time and never change your idea? That probably is, a sign of bad leadership, If you're not capable of pivoting, like in the startup world, if you're creating a company and from the get-go you're like, I'm never going to pivot this company, this is what we're going to do, I'm never adapting to the market. Like, what? That's not a good thing to do. you're not a good CEO. You're not a good entrepreneur if you do that. But change somehow is, if I, as a politician, if you ever change your opinion on things, you've committed like a grave sin or something. You're never supposed to do that. You're like, oh, people are going to see you as a loser. But when in reality, your ideas are supposed to evolve. Your ideas are supposed to change over time about things. Because society will change and you have to change too. But in politics, somehow that's not accepted. And so, anyways, but that's just what I was just going off a little bit of a tangent talking about stuff in the book. Great book. I would encourage everyone to go read it. And, if you like it, feel free to tell me what you think. If you don't like it, feel free to tell me what you think. And, after reading it, I think personally, I've been spending more time sort of reflecting upon myself and the beliefs that I hold and questioning them instead of questioning those who disagree with me. Now what I want to do more is to agree more with the people who disagree with me and to understand why exactly they disagree with me and to see if they, and to see if I can learn something from it. And because I really, want to grow and change and evolve as a person. And to do that, you got to change stuff about yourself. And to change stuff about yourself, you got to talk to people who disagree with you. That's just, something that I think. And if we can all drop our ego a little bit and, consider the stuff that other people are telling you instead of just dismissing things you don't like, it's going to be a better world. Hopefully no more conflicts. That's never going to happen. But yeah, really fun book. And it's not written in dense language either. It's written for everyone. It's very easy to understand. The writer did a very fantastic job. And a lot of the times when I read that's the other rant I have about nonfiction. Sometimes the writing is just unnecessarily long. Like I'm recently also reading the book Nexus by the author of Sapien. We all know he's a fantastic author. Like Sapien is one of the most impactful books when it came out back in the days, or not back in the, like, I think 2017 or some time. But man, like when I'm reading Nexus, it's just sometimes it's just like like it's just going on and on. It's just almost like feels like the author is showing off like how good of a writer they are. And thankfully this book did not do that. It cut straight to the point, and it contains a lot of information, but most of them are useful and very worthwhile the time. And so yeah, encourage everyone to go read it. Again, think like a rocket scientist. And thanks for watching the video. Have a good day.